All right, we're going to supplement our World War II lecture with the World War II European battles. We'll do the same thing in Japan um, after Christmas. So, kind of look at a chronological order of the battles that we have. World War II starts in September with France and Britain declaring war on Germany in September of 1939. Nothing will happen, though, for 8 months. Hitler didn't really think that Britain and France would declare war on them. Britain and France are in no way, in any kind of shape, prepared for war. So we go for about 8 months of nothing happening. It's called the phony war. And then the phony war will become the real war when uh, Hitler will move west and start taking on Norway, um, the Netherlands, France, and that. And so the first one is the fall of France, and the war will start in May of 1940. France is a major force in the world, and to knock them out in 6 weeks is simply unexplainable for the world. All of Germany, or excuse me, all of France, Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, they all fall within 6 weeks. After that, there is no other Allied force left to fight against Germany on the entire Western Front. So it's just Germany in 6 weeks. Next, after that, you have the Battle of Britain. The Battle of Britain will follow. So France will fall in June of 40, and immediately Hitler will turn on Britain, and he will start the air battle, the air bombardment of uh, England and pounding London night after night. It'll last from June of 1940 to June of 1941. It's called Operation Sea Lion. It is a nonstop psychological war. It's total warfare. 40,000 British civilians will be killed during this air raid. Hitler's almost got um, Britain out of the war, but he'll stop. And he'll stop just before he has knocked them out. And he will then turn and invade the Soviet Union. Now, that's going to be critical mistake number one. He should have finished it, probably would have taken maybe 3 to 6 more months, but he should have finished that before he ever moved to the next target. Our next target is the Soviet Union. Just in June of 41, when it looked very, very bleak for the Allied forces. Remember, America doesn't get into the war until officially get in the war until December of 1941. Was in no shape, way, or form going to do anything to Germany over in Europe. They just don't have the ability to get people over there. So Germany will turn and use the old argument that's been used so well, that he needs room and he needs space for the German people, and he will turn and, after making that non-aggression pact with Russia and Stalin, he will attack them in Operation Barbarossa, and the Germans will march just right across all of Eastern Europe, right into the Soviets, and come very, very close to knocking the Soviets out in the fall of 41, and he's right on the verge of knocking him out. And we'll get into a standstill, hand-to-hand battle for the town of Stalingrad, and they're just almost out when the winter of 1941, which was the coldest winter in the 20th century, arrives, and it stops the Axis powers in minus 40 and 50 degree wind, just minus 40 to 50 degrees, to forget the wind chill. German soldiers as well as Russian soldiers will freeze to death. Supply lines are stopped. Nothing runs in that kind of weather. And in that time frame, the Soviets are able to regroup a little bit, and they're able to hold on. This will be the largest battle in the entire war, 2.2 million men will fight in it. An estimated 1.8 to 2 million people will die. That's both military and civilian. So it's incredible loss. Just, we don't have anything like that on the Western Front. The battle will be finally won by the Soviets stopping Germany's advancement to the east, and this will be the first battle that the Germans lose in World War II. They're going to be on the defensive and being pushed back from this point on in Russia. Next, you have the Battle of North Africa, and North Africa is from June of 1940 until May of 1943. We get in the war in December of 1941, and it's fought over there with the British fighting against Germany and Italians, primarily over the control of the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal is going to tie the Middle East and all of their oil, and it's going to give passage into the Mediterranean, and is extremely vital. The victory by the Allied forces finally in May of 43 will set up the invasion of the island of Sicily, which is off in just the south of Italy. The first year we're fighting over there in Africa, we're getting crushed. The Germans just pummel us. Eventually, we'll get a new commander over there by the name of George Patton, and he will bring stability, and he'll eventually end up knocking the Germans out of Africa. From the North African campaign, we're going to go into the Italian campaign, and the Italian campaign is going to go from July of 1943 to May of 1945. The Italian campaign is an extremely intense battle. This is the most intense battle that the Allied forces will fight up until this point in the war. Italy is fortified with strong, well-trained Italian as well as German troops, and the Americans are going to slosh their way up from the south up towards the north. We'll take an incredible loss. We'll lose. We'll have 320,000 either wounded or dead casualties. But again, Patton and his Third Army is just too much for the Germans, and he's a great tank commander, and we slowly make our way up, capturing Milan in May and freeing Italy. Italy will then collapse, and Mussolini will be captured trying to escape, and he will be killed and then hung in Milan in the Central Park or Central Downtown, as we kind of already talked about. That Italian campaign is significant because it's going to knock out Germany's huge ally to the south. Now, once we get to the top of Italy, we have a dilemma. We can't cross the Alp Mountains because the Alps are just simply too high. They're like 16,000 feet high. And we can't get our tanks and our mechanized material over. So we got to turn around, go back, got to go down south again, and we're going to go get in our ships, and we're going to go back to England, and we're going to stage a campaign to land in Western Europe somewhere. That's going to be D-Day. We're going to be taking a lot of troops and staging invasion force into Western Europe. And we continually are giving the Germans all kinds of false information on where we're going to land. Finally, after two aborted missions to land in Western Europe or Western France, on June 6th of 1944, we had to land. Again, I want to make sure you understand this, that we're going to land, you have to land when in the morning, so you're going to have to use the cover of darkness, and you have to land in the morning when the tide is going to be at high tide in the morning. If you land when it's at low tide, then you're going to have a lot of ground where those troops are going to be running across that sand, and they're going to be open target for the Germans to open up with their machine gun nests. They've targeted and put into their machine guns every single inch of that western shoreline, so they're waiting for us to come. The Allied forces will launch the largest invasion ever into Western Europe, called Operation Overlord. We'll have 150,000 American, Canadian, and British troops that will land on 5 separate beaches in France under heavy German resistance. We were told initially that we had a casualty rate of 50%. We were much less than that. The deadliest beach of the 5 was a place called Omaha, where the Americans will take heavily casualties there. But we will land there, and after intense fighting, we will finally break out of the beachfront, and we will secure Western Europe and France pretty quickly. This is the turning point in the European theater. This is where, from this point forward, we're marching towards Germany, and Germany's in retreat. So we do this in June of 44. Then in December of 1944, Germany will make its last offensive, and that's going to be called the Battle of the Bulge. The Battle of the Bulge will be from June 16th, 1944 to January of 1945. The German objective was to split the Allied forces. They have some of their Panther tanks. They're going to come through like an arrow. They're going to split through the Allied forces, and they're going to hopefully encircle 4 of the Allied armies and then encircle them and destroy them. They were also trying to capture the port city in Belgium called Antwerp, and we stopped them. We're able to stop them again with Patton and his Third Army. Patton had figured that the Germans were going to make a breakout move, and he comes to the rescue. The Germans will eventually just run out of oil and gasoline for their tanks. Their tanks can't keep going, and once the tanks are stopped, then they turn around and start marching back to Germany. And we're going to take heavy losses. We're going to lose 20,000 men killed and 40,000 wounded, but we will stop this advancement. And once that's done, this will be the last offensive output by the Germans. So those are the battles that we're looking at in European theater. We'll turn around now and talk about the Pacific theater, and we'll be going through some of the battles over there. Okay?